BBC, inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome to Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Tonight we focus on the 84 trillion budget for 2026-2027. A lot is to be said in this budget, especially when you look at debt, what it means for us to be able to have money for the wealth creation, but also the government keeps thumb chesting with the ATMs. Is PDM the flagship, and how much money will it have even this final time in this budget? We look at about 4 trillion shillings that has been spent in PDM, but we ask, how much impact has it had in the lives of Ugandans? What will the president be saying tomorrow about this budget? He said no more sleep, but also said no corruption. Are these things that he can be able to say to comfort Ugandans as they look at the numbers here? The numbers are at stake. Let me get to the panel that is going to be speaking with us this evening. On my immediate left, Julia Muhumza, who is a lecturer and a youth leader. She's with us this evening. Good evening, Julia, and it's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back as well.
Next to Julia is Mr. Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director of CS Bank, is with us this evening. Good evening, sir, and it's good to have you back.
Good evening, Thomas.
The tie, is there anything we should read into it? Just asking.
It's my tie.
Next to Julius is the Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda, the Chief of Staff at the People's Front for Freedom, but also the Secretary General there. Good evening, sir, and it's good to have you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
Professor Waswa Balunywa Juma, a philanthropist, but also an educationist, an economist at that. Good evening, Professor, and it's good to have you back.
Good evening. Thank you for having me this evening.
Lastly but not least, the Honorable Godfrey Kabyanga, the former Minister of State in charge of ICT and National Guidance, is with us this evening, and a member of NRM and PLU?
Both. P021.
P021.
Yes.
Interesting. So tonight we're discussing the budget. Tomorrow the budget reading will be happening at Kololo, and we'll have the Finance Minister read a few things in the budget. The President's speech will be the anchor of what will be happening come 1st of July, where it will take effect. We pay attention to this because the numbers in there are very delicate for us to know, especially the taxes that will take precedence come the 1st of July. But most of all, how much money do we have to spend as a country? Those are the questions we'll be putting to the panel today. You can be part of the show. Text us on 0709 60 25 92 for both text and WhatsApp, but also on X. We're live on Spaces there, and also we're on YouTube. Drop your comment. We'll get to it at the top of the hour. Let me get to the Honorable Semuju. We were here with the Honorable Minister Musasi the last time, and we're talking about the budget. What are your predictions of the President's speech tomorrow?
I think the President will concentrate on PDM and maybe a Myoga and something else. I have served as a Shadow Minister for Finance 2.5 years, and I have explained that PDM to the ordinary people. Because the 2024 population and President likes quoting of households that are not in the money economy at 39%. The average size of a household in Uganda is about 4 point something. So we have 10 million, I think, 0.6 households in Uganda. So 39% of those 10.6 million comes to about 14 million Ugandans. So those are the people that the President wants to bring in what he calls the money economy. And I think this will be the fifth year of PDM. The policy of PDM is that ever after 2.5 years, if you receive the money 1 million, you will pay, I think, 1.2. When we are processing this budget, I was still in Parliament. The first group, because the first money to be rolled out was 1 trillion. That money is supposed to have been repaid. When you read the report of the Auditor General, I think the Auditor General says they have repaid 9 billion, but Finance says they have repaid only 1. Because this is not, so it's meant to be a revolving fund, and we're not supposed to be budgeting for PDM forever. So the first trillion that was dispersed, by now it was supposed to have been recovered. But only, according to Auditor General, 9 billion, according to Finance, about 1 billion point something. That is one measure for me of success or no success of PDM. But also when we are processing budget, we realize that actually domestic taxes are not growing. Instead, it's international taxes, if you look at this budget. And then the question was, if PDM has transformed households and they are doing very well, there must be a corresponding growth in consumption and therefore domestic taxes, because you're going to be taxing these people as they consume. They take more sugar, more beverages, more cement, more everything. But the domestic taxes are not growing. So those are supposed to be the measure. Because this government of Kabyang, the moment they release money for them, they will celebrate. That used to happen even with the NADS. When they distribute seedlings, they will tell you how much tons of seedling they have distributed, not the production. Even PDM, the success is not in how many people have now moved from poverty to, the success is how much money we have distributed. Even you are quoting 4 trillion. We should be quoting success stories. I see the president, and I know even tomorrow he will. He keeps broadcasting the same images of success stories. I went to India in Goa. If you go to a village of people who run those cottage industries, almost every home will have one. So their videos are videos of villages, not videos of one individual in Butareja, another one in Chazanga where I was born, another one in Kabyanga's area in Kasese. So therefore PDM is going to be the key issue, because that's the target of the president. And I told Parliament in my report, response to the budget, that you have a budget of 84 trillion. You're going to spend only 1 trillion on 14 million people, trying to get them out of poverty. In this particular budget, the salaries and wages are going to account for about 9.7 trillion. And then the other expenses, and I want to speak ordinary English, expenses, people who are serving government, about 400,000 of them, comes to about 4 trillion. And actually, salaries with the wages and allowances is 14 trillion. When you add other expenditure of vehicle, seminar, it comes to about 22 trillion. Already in this budget, you're going to be paying 33 trillion in debt servicing. You spend 20 trillion on staff, 400,000 of them. And then you have about 2.6 in classified expenditure. At the end of the day, government has about 25 trillion. So tomorrow what they are going to be presenting is a budget of about 25 trillion. So to call it 80, it's a theory. It is not there. Because 33 paying loans, 22 salaries for your staff. You have 2.6 trillion classified expenditure. So what remains is 25. But already even the 25, if you go to sectors like works, the last time we were interacting with the Honorable Katumba Wamala as the Minister for Works, now he's been moved. He had a date. Contractors had even suspended work of 1.7 trillion. So if you give him, because if you look at the budget of works, which is I think either 8, you have railway there, you have standard gauge railway, you have the meter railway, you have, so the money to do roads is also even not there. because contractors had suspended work. So this budget is a painkiller. This is a painkiller budget.
Painkiller for who? Killing what pain?
You see, if you have a cancer patient and you don't have the appropriate drug, you can give Panadol for him to live another day.
To just relieve them of the pain?
Just relieve him of the pain until tomorrow. So that's what the president is going to be presenting tomorrow, a painkiller. They speak about transformation. I was in the report of, the National Development Plan 4. National Planning Authority is telling you that we've moved from about 54% to nearly 70%. That's the cost of administration in Uganda. Cost of administration is going to about 70%. That's why I'm calling it a painkiller. The people you want to remove from poverty, you will not move them. You're going to have the same beneficiaries with their names written in this budget. When I was making a response, I said, guys, look, debt servicing, whose debt are we servicing? You're going to pay Congo, you're going to give money to Pineti, you're going to give money to Amina of Atiak. They have just even given 900 billion through a supplementary. You're going to give all these President Yoweri Museveni's friends. They are the ones who are enjoying this budget. So the ordinary Ugandan expect a painkiller tomorrow. If you are poor, you will remain poor. You go to health, go to education. When we are doing education, the human resource in the education sector, you can't find money to hire teachers. I'm happy to meet a lecturer here. You go to universities like Busitema, their staffing levels are 10%. And that's why the IMF in their latest assessment on Uganda are telling you that the productivity level of Ugandans who are in school today will not exceed 39%. The world average is 50%. You go to health, Murago is operating at 49% human resource. It is worse in other regional and general hospitals. So please, if you are going to be on UBC or any radio, wait for your painkiller tomorrow. That's what your president will be presenting it to you, to live another day. If God willing, he allows other people to come in, then we will begin dealing with the cancer of Uganda's economy.
Honorable Semuju, before I leave you to come to Julius, the numbers that are being thrown around, and I'm glad you said 1 billion has been recovered or 9 billion has been recovered, but since Youth Livelihood Fund, Bonaba Gaggawale, government keeps talking about how much money it's putting there, but it's not talking about how much impact this money is having. Why has government become a credit facility?
It's okay to have a cheaper capital for the rural people, for the poor people, but this capital is not demand driven.
Yes.
You've not met people who are saying that in Chazanga, I grew up in a village. We used to grow maize and beans, and the first thing we do before selling and eating is to store and keep in good conditions the seed that we'll use next planting season. Now everybody in Uganda must depend on government. Of course you want improved seeds. So government is not identifying. That's why I've been representing a constituency. You come to Chireka. Chireka as a parish is more than 100,000 people, and then you bring 100 million, which is a business of one person. And they say, okay, in Chireka we've dealt with you. So no study was done. And this government has been very generous with information. They will tell you that PDM, the implementation started before the completion of the study. They didn't even know who was supposed to be a beneficiary. Even as I speak to you today, in all their reports, they will not tell you that these are the beneficiaries, and we can track them with certainty and say these fellows were poor, now they have moved from poverty to this. But these are campaign, so the amount of time and money these Kabyangas are spending on radio, singing on top of their voices about PDM, it is more of a campaign slogan than an economic intervention that is meant to. When Museveni came here, in my village, he was distributing tractors and Tata lorries written on produce for marketing, produce for export, and they're identifying bigger farmers. Now they just throw inputs to anyone. Where I was born, they brought cows, and I don't know whether it is nads, these exotic. gave to someone who has never kept a rabbit and gave him a cow. Within 2 months, they were dead. There are other people who were involved, they didn't qualify. So these things are not demand-driven, but when you're in a campaign, you want to reach everybody so that you enhance your popularity. So that's the purpose that this PDM is serving. I want Kabyanga to tell me at what stage were the studies when the implementation started. Not even at 60%. So the studies are ongoing, but the implementation has started. Now, in their own reports, finance says 1 billion recovered. They were supposed to recover 1 trillion. What Tajano says is 9 billion. And then we are asking them, why are we doing badly with the domestic taxes if people's finances are improving? Correspondingly, the domestic taxes are supposed to be improving as well.
Okay, thank you. Julius, let me come to you. Honorable Semuju has called it a painkiller of a budget. But give us the actual. What is there actually to spend, and where is it going to be spent?
Thank you. The budget, it has a number of things to spend on, and I think one of them, of course, is the PDM that we are talking about. There is money for small and medium enterprise recovery fund, around 100 billion, I think. They have put money for large commercial agriculture farmers. That is part of the ATMs, which is the agriculture, tourism, and manufacturing and sciences. So, I mean, the things are there in the budget for to benefit from. If you go to roads, if you go to energy, if you go to, I mean, monies are put there. So the resources are there. But I think the fundamental question is how we turn these resources into how we can benefit from these resources and that our targets can be achieved. So the story of PDM is a story of like all other projects, that sometimes we conceive a very nice idea, but when it comes to execution, that is the problem. It's not because that money is missing. In fact, I think for me, one of the conclusions I have done a long time ago is that we don't lack money in this country. We don't lack money. We have money. Our biggest challenge, I think, is execution and implementation of programs. I agree with him when he talks about the demand-driven part, because basically PDM from the beginning, the original idea was that money goes to a parish, and then those interested go and demand, and they say, I have a good idea, can I have this money? But then it was changed into a supply side. So sometimes I think politics really distorts a very nice idea, and then it collapses. So we need, I think, in terms of managing this budget, we need really to look at our execution part. That you have resources, but you are unable actually to utilize the resources either on time or even on the budget. And one example I can give you is that you have, for example, is that you have a 14 trillion of undisbursed loans, for example. And you want to ask yourself, why is this money, why are we not utilizing this money? Because already there is an opportunity cost that you are not, it's not doing what you wanted it to do it, but also you are paying around 185 billion in the next financial year on the fines that you have not used. People are fining you for not using the money. So when you look at that, then you ask yourself, is it because we lack money, or is it because we are unable to utilize the money that has been given to us? So that is one of the key elements I think we need to be able to look at on how we can be able to execute on time, but also execute the budget on time, but also on budget. The other big element you will find in the budget, of course, is around tourism. And I think they have put very good money for AFCON. And one of the things you want to ask about these stadiums that we are putting up is, after the games, what are we going to do? Because, of course, you know how our Naambole has been managed for quite some time. So you want to look beyond how we can maintain these assets that we have so much put money and invested in these particular resources. How are we going to manage them after the games are over? So for me is that yes, there are great things in the budget, the opportunities are there. We need to get prepared to see how we can benefit from this. But I think the biggest challenge we face today, which I think I would wish the president to talk about and to address it, is our inability to use our resources effectively but also efficiently.
Julius, before I come to Julia here, off air we talked about the 730 billion for irrigation, and you really worsened matters by saying 90 billion has already gone away. So we're starting on a note where 90 billion is not there. But also 3.7 trillion today signed for 10 aircrafts. What has been our budget performance, but specifically in terms of collection? We're at 32 trillion, then this financial year that's ending 37, we're now jumping to 44. Do we have the capability to raise this money?
I think we are borrowing on the pretext that the oil revenues are going to come. And I thank God I have seen a small drop that has come in this financial 1.4 trillion. I think the biggest part for me, for URA, and this is what I've been asking, is that we need to look at how we can collect these taxes more efficiently and also more effectively. And why do I say this? Is that you really find that, for example, if you got rental tax, just that, not everybody is actually paying rental tax because of inability of URA to move around all who have rentals. And I have told them, I said, look, you can work with districts because the district will go and look for a property tax. The same building, actually, there is also rental tax. So if you work with the district, it is a win-win both for the district and also for yourself. And in that way, you can be able to ensure that everybody gets in. I'm not a believer of increasing rates at all. I'm a believer that everybody who earns can pay their fair share of the tax. But because now we are not able to collect everywhere, we end up now saying, let's add more taxes on this and this, so that we can be able to meet the target. And it is really hurting the economy, and especially the small and medium enterprise businesses. It is really, really hurting the economy. So the 44 trillion, I hope that we can really achieve that, but it's going to be a very, very big challenge for Uganda Revenue Authority to be able to do that.
Has it hit its target, Uganda Revenue Authority, in the last
No, for the last years they have not. I think the last hit their target 4 years ago, somewhere there, once, but for the last 3 years they have not been able to hit the target. But their collections have been increasing. That's the other part. You don't hit your target, but if they give a target of 44 now, and then you hit 41, but last year you collected 39, the collections, the volumes they are still increasing. An indication that probably also over ambitious in terms of the targets that we set up for URA, that probably the economy that cannot be able to generate all those taxes that you put a target on. So we need actually to be very moderate and understand that this economy, this is the maximum it can be able to generate. Otherwise, beyond that, you are hurting.
The question is at what cost? Let me come to Julia here. Julia, as a young person, but also young people on digital, trying to make businesses work, trying to be entrepreneurial in things they do, some not receiving employment there. What are your expectations of the president's speech tomorrow? What would you like him to speak to?
Thank you so much. It's a humbling experience being on this panel as a young person. But I want to start off on a very unfortunate bit with the very unpopular policy we have in the room and definitely affecting very many young people, and that's the medical interns. So definitely we cannot be talking about government spending without adding a voice to everyone else adding a voice to it. And I think, in a special way, I just want to add my voice to government to actually just recall this policy. I think from the policy perspective, we have gotten it wrong when we start off by saying, treating them as just doctors or medical interns and forgetting that it's an equation that involves patients. and all of us here are potential victims. So I think we need to stop looking at the expenditure that goes to medical interns or payment of their salaries as a luxurious one, but one that is an enabling or as an enabling factor for them to actually do what they're supposed to be doing. In a country where we have a doctor-patient ratio of 1 to 25,000 patients, we would not be actually debating. I think the better policy question would be how better we reform the scheme to accommodate more medical personnel into the profession instead of scrapping or abolishing the payments in general. And I think I also find it contradictory because the president has reaffirmed his commitment to sciences, incentivizing teachers to teach kids to be in sciences, only for them to end up in sciences, and then policy-wise we try to sabotage them, equity-wise and other factors considered. So as a young person, what do I expect from the president tomorrow in terms of the budget? I think as an ordinary young person, you're either looking for employment, you're starting up something, you keep failing because of the tax framework. And I think that the bigger question beyond the macro is how this budget then translates to help young people on ground. They have done a deep analysis of PDM. We also have YLP. There's been a lot of government commitment to throw money to very many groups, including young people. But like earlier mentioned, I think government has lost it by only focusing on tracking the inputs and just ticking it off the box. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I've had a chance to interact with most of the youth groups. Most of these programs, very many actually young people do not even know what programs government has for them. I also learned recently that government, I think, has some money for young people who want to do large-scale agriculture in UDB, something of the sort. So government allocates money for very many youth programs that the intended beneficiaries, one, do not know about. But secondly, even if you know about, we know what usually happens, that in the end, the beneficiaries, the ones that take advantage, are usually not the ones intended to take advantage of the existing programs. So I think in this financial year, we hope to see government actually take a very strong stand on making sure that they either put into place the robust monitoring and evaluation frameworks to make sure that we move beyond just giving young people money. We've had cases, they told me a story way back when I was in my campaigns that there's even occasions where you're giving, there's a time the president was giving, I think, young people, I think, cattle, and then they would come to pick them with a buyer. So you're giving them something to start and maybe multiply over time. But like earlier mentioned, it's not demand driven. But for me, I just want to focus on beyond the disbursement of funds, beyond, okay, saying we have put this amount of money in YLP. Because from the youth leadership, we've often had a lot of activism around increased money that is going to the young people. The biggest percentage of the population is young people. But I think before we increase what is going into these programs, we need to streamline these programs to make sure that, one, they go to the right beneficiaries, but on top of that, you just don't give money. There must be a sort of training attached to it so that this money is effectively utilized. I mean, they have made it clear that as a country, for me, I usually say a budget is a statement of the priorities. I don't think we have the luxury, given how much we borrow every single time. Even today we saw Parliament start to approve borrowing. I don't think we have the luxury to spend as much as we spend as a country. And I think hopefully the next financial year we see a lot of revision on cutting down expenditures that are really not called for within government and redirecting that money priorities. Of course, the president tomorrow will reaffirm his commitment to ATMS. But again, to a young, ordinary Ugandan, we just want to see how this then translates into creation of jobs or employment opportunities. They have talked about here the tax base. You realize that I think 90% of young startups die before their first birthday. There is a bill that has been in Parliament, I think it's a startup bill. So at the end of the day, we are taking so much of taxes even from those that are just really struggling to start up something. And I'm a strong believer in the multiplier effect. If some of these startup businesses are eventually get access to waivers, they're in position to either grow, multiply, employ others, and so on and so forth. So I think tomorrow the president will say the obvious that we want to hear. He will remind us that it's Sanja, not sleep. But again, I think for us, we are more intended on seeing how this actually translates into decent livelihoods for Ugandans. Yeah, because at the end of the day, no matter, even if you came and told me we are allocating this much money to either ATMS, because those are the priorities of the government currently and the enabling factors. At the end of the day, if for us we are not seeing either more jobs, more young people incorporated in the value chains within the mineral sector, we can talk about agriculture. I think there's a lot of effort from government to have more young people enter agriculture. But again, if you're giving someone little money, we know agriculture is only beneficial if it's on a large scale and there's innovation involved. But again, we're still giving out very limited handouts to individuals from the supply side, not even the demand side, and we expect large returns. So I think from the president, as I conclude, from the president, young people we would want, definitely he's going to reaffirm his commitment, and he's going to remind us about how very many of people are sleeping instead of doing what they're supposed to be doing. But beyond all of that, I think we also need to see the action beyond the speech. Yeah, moving forward, the money allocated, how is it monitored, how is it accounted for, and how then all of this translates into...
Thank you very much. Honorable Kabyanga, 84 trillion is what you're going to use in the next financial year. Almost close to 40% of it is going to be used for debt. You're already borrowing against it now. What informed the priorities that you have set in this budget? Is it for Ugandans or its politics?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to this panel. Let me first thank the President for offering me the opportunity to serve for the last 5 years. I wound up my tour of duty today, handed over to the new Minister of ICT and National Guidance, in charge of National Guidance. And I'm now transitioning to the private sector with my brother Semuju. You know, he keeps saying the Kabyanga government, but he forgets that he has also been in the legislative arm of what? Of government. So it is our government, Honorable Semuju. Me, I was in the executive, for you were in the legislative arm. The budget now is 84 trillion. And just as Semuju said, 33 trillion will go to debt servicing. Borrowing is not bad. There are even countries whose debt to GDP ratio is more than 100%. They are there. Even America is there. But the whole issue is, when you borrow, how do you utilize the money? I think that's where the problem is. And that's why borrowing is becoming a big problem in this country. Where you borrow money, and for 3 years you have not what?
But Honorable Julius made a comment and said 14 trillion shillings unutilized, but we have still borrowed 730 billion for irrigation, 3.7 trillion for 10 aircrafts. We're still paying on this money interest. Are we really serious with what we're borrowing?
And that's what I'm telling you, 14 trillion unutilized. And the issue is, why should it? Because the 14 trillion is not for irrigation. And here we need to put money in irrigation, because that's where the real production will take place. We have to increase productivity and production in order for us to achieve our one of our ATM, industrialization. So we must borrow for irrigation. We must borrow for the airline, because the air transport, our airline is like a road. It's like you are borrowing for the standard gauge rail, and therefore you will borrow for that.
And that's the question, Honorable.
Yes.
Because as reading something that Amos wrote this week, Amos Wekesa, and the Uganda Airlines flight, he went to Dar es Salaam. Not even a quarter of it was full. He came back. It was even less than that. So what informs these investments we're making? Because it seems like we're either politicizing this and it's not economics.
You know, Timothy, if you have been in business, you can't invest today and think you're going to get profit the following day. For how long has this airline been in operation? It must first of all create confidence. It must create its own market. You should know that when it was taking off, then it got problems. One time I was with my colleagues in Dubai, and for them they went Uganda Airlines, me I went Emirates. And Uganda Airlines cancelled the flight at the last hour when we were coming back. And they spent there another, 2 days. So that was a lost opportunity. And now it is again reorganizing. So the airline flying to Dar es Salaam, half full, it's not a big problem at all. But the airline being efficient, and it takes about 10 years with that efficiency, it's going to catch up. And the 25 trillion, which will go into development expenditure, the whole issue is it going into the real things? I think that's what we should now be thinking about. And when the president says, Chisanja, no corruption, I really would like to have that it should be seen to be done. Because the other time you saw the report of IGG saying that about 10 trillion went into what? Into corruption. And if we are not careful, that 10 trillion might be for what was put aside for development what? Expenditure. Because you can't eat. Some people can eat even the salaries for what? Can create ghost workers. But most of the corruption will be into that. And that's where now we should go and see that this money which you have put aside, the 25 trillion, really translates into real development. There must be efficiency, there must be transparency, there must be honesty in expending this this money. Then there we are going to get what we want. The Honorable Semuju talked about PDM. Yes, PDM so far I think we have dispersed 4 trillion in 4 years, because we started late because of COVID. And now only 4 million people have benefited out of the 14 million, and have received out of the what? Out of the 14 million, which implies now we have to put in more money, because even if we start recovering all, we still have some 14 million to do what? To support, and therefore we need to put in more money. And studies are, because now, for instance, when PDM started, there was an oversight on urban authorities. Now, like Semuju's constituency, PDM was a problem because it was basically somehow tailored around agriculture. And now you go to Kira municipality, and you say now who will invest? Probably the only activity that you can invest in is probably poultry. And now the guidelines have changed for urban authorities. So all those are challenges which we have met on the way under PDM. But PDM is a very, very good strategy which we need to support. And Semuju only sees what the president shows. But Semuju doesn't see what UBC shows. You know, UBC has been showing more PDM success stories than what the president shows. Because the president only shows a few clips because he's having a speech. But if you follow UBC mainly, they are giving so many success stories of what? PDM. But also, there are problems in PDM. There are people who have been given money and have squandered it. And there are also parish chiefs, these committee circle chairs who are also squandering money. There are even some people who didn't receive all the 1 million. Some of them got 500,000, some of them got 800,000. When you interview them, you meet someone somewhere has already fleeced them. All those are things which we need to work on as a country. And it needs collective responsibility. You can't fight corruption alone in this country. If all of us don't rise up and say, enough is enough, we are not going to do much. But recently I also read a report by the outgoing Minister of Gender. I realized there's a lot of social funds in the Ministry of what? Gender. A lot. It's even more than PDM. And all those social funds, I had never known that all those social funds are in the Ministry of what? Of Gender. But I got time to read through that report. And I realized all this money which is in gender, if we add on PDM, I think this country would be moving at supersonic speed. But obviously the president tomorrow, he already has said 3 targets, and all his speech will be tailored to that. The tenfold growth strategy, the double-digit growth, and bringing everybody to the higher middle income status. And that budget, if you look at it, and the budgets that will come in 5 years, they will all be tailored to that. And my only prayer is that as Ugandans, if we borrow money for irrigation, like the loan which was presented today, let us put it in irrigation and be very efficient and transparent. Otherwise, it will also go to the waste, and we shan't get what we want. So what we need is this money translating in real production, in real development.
And Honorable Minister, before I get to the Prof, Honorable Semuju mentioned it, not demand-driven. Julia mentioned it and said the impact. You're very good at giving us the numbers of 4 trillion has been dispersed to 4 million people. Where are the numbers of impact?
But you know, I don't know what they mean by not demand-driven. Because when we are designing any project, we have already made a baseline survey. And we already know what the people want. And I think when you say what is the impact, there are reports so far under PDM. I think one of these days we should invite Garavuz here, and then he gives you reports of the real impact of what? Of PDM.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Prof, let me come to you.
Yes.
This past week, Her Excellency Hassan Suru was in Russia, spoke of 8 areas she wants to partner with Russia, but also was realistic enough to talk about economic growth. Said Tanzania's economic growth is at 6.3%. If it went any further, it would be 6.4%. With these ambitions of 7–10% growth, 500 billion, tenfold growth, aren't we biting more than we can chew?
No, the growth in Uganda is going to come from oil largely. If you go to the trajectory of countries that have grown, they've attained a 10% growth rate for over a 10-year period. But Uganda is not China, Uganda is not Japan, Uganda is not Korea. Policy-wise, we're doing very, very well. The Uganda government, 1987, I think I've mentioned this, we agreed to have a free market economy. And we liberalize the economy. We have set everything in place to make sure that we are driven by market forces. It has had challenges. The challenges are, one, about 30% of I think 25–30% of the country's GDP is still non-monetized. That gives you now the 13–14% tax collection on GDP. You cannot collect more than that, because that 30% It's not monetized. So your GDP, your tax collections can never increase. So your priority, which is the Ministry of Finance keeps on saying, is monetizing that component of GDP which is not monetized. So that is fine. However, 70% of Uganda's population relies on agriculture, and they are illiterate, unfortunately. There is no way this country is going to transform with the 70% of the population in agriculture and they are illiterate. So what, I mean, the government, the president has had his strategies, which I think we need to study a little bit more and possibly improve. But the strategies are not working. I was the last chairman of Uganda Airlines, and with the permission of the president, I closed it. It will never make money. Sorry about that. It will never make money.
So regardless of whatever
we do, 3.7 trillion is...
we looked at the airline business, and if you know what's happening out there, there is no way Uganda is going to compete in that market. At some stage, as Emirates was coming up, we even wanted to partner with them. But they did a study, and someone told me, there's nothing here, there's no market here. So when Uganda Airlines was being reopened, we thought we should go into cargo first. You can't lose money on cargo. But anyway, that's a strategy, that let's put money into that infrastructure. Possibly in the long run it will give us money. All the funding that is subsidized are distortions to markets.
What do you mean by that? That all the funding is subsidized is a distortion?
We have agreed on a free market policy, where I mean prices should be determined by the force of demand and supply. So if we give money to people which is subsidized, what is going to happen in the long run? They can't compete. They can't compete. But and then you are giving money. Try out and give somebody who has never seen 200,000 shillings, and you give him that 200. His normal budget is 30,000, 50,000, selling bananas on the street, and you give him 200,000. I mean, to me, the logic of all these subsidized financing in a free market economy, it won't work. So who is getting the money? Who is succeeding? The people who are succeeding are those who are getting commercial funds. And who are they? They are largely non-Ugandans. So as we budget, I mean, a very simplistic approach is this. Who is responsible for your health and wealth and growth? It is you. What is the role of government? Government is supposed to provide traditionally police, defense, and then infrastructure. Government should not feed you. If government starts feeding you, you are in a problem. That's why everybody in this country expects government to yambi. So if you can't feed yourself, government should help you, or the NGO sector should help you to be able to do something and feed yourself at the end of the day. So I believe that we need to address that 30% of the GDP.
How do we address it?
By ensuring that the people move away from agriculture.
To what?
To industry and services. That can only happen if we are able to negotiate trade agreements with our partners where we get value for what we produce. We don't get value for coffee. We have not been getting value for iron ore. Literally all things that we export, we have not been getting value. That's an area where we should be able to concentrate so that we can have better jobs which are higher value. Agriculture is no value. The people you are giving money today, what are they going to do? Trade in old clothes? That should stop. That should stop. So if we can target getting that 70% of the population from agriculture to services and industry, by fixing trade relationships, by looking at BRICS as one of the new areas to be able to take our coffee, by improving our productivity with making sure the electricity is working well. I complain literally every day my electricity is off for 22 hours a day. There is no way I'm going to be able to be competitive. I think this somebody there's somebody who is this young man who he didn't go through, but he is selling his maize meal because of electricity. Lucy? Lucy. Yes, Lucy. And he's saying literally everybody, and he says for you to be able to make money there, you must steal electricity. Now these are basic issues which you must deal with. I think to me where the budget is going is the plan of government, because the budget is a quantification of the ideas and plans of the leaders. But we need to be able to ensure that the collection we're getting is much higher. We cannot, for the last 20 years, we have a budget deficit. So the money we are repaying in terms of loans continues to increase. Until the last 2 years or so, we have been importing goods worth $6 billion and we export only $2 billion. KAO has been giving us $1 billion. So the deficit of $3 billion every year, where we import thread, all those kind of things, has been funded by IMF. You can't continue like that. There is no way this country will transform. So we need to address that basic issue of getting people out of agriculture to industry and services. And that is something that needs to be looked at much more closely, so that our percentage of tax to GDP can increase. If you put that 30%, monetized it, and you may be able to collect another 2-3% in terms of taxes on it. So we still need a lot of work to think through how do we address that problem. Otherwise, the expenditure, the money that's being spent today, is being spent on the priorities as seen now. And the question which I think colleagues have raised here is that if IEG said 10 trillion is going to corruption, this country, I think, I'm not sure how much they've collected last year, possibly 30 trillion. 29. So if 10 went into corruption, we have a problem on our hands.
You painted a gloomer picture than we already had. Let me read some messages. Good evening, Timothy. This is Monica from Adjumani. According to me, the budget shows increase in spending in several sectors, but success should be judged by the outcomes rather than the amount spent. If public service improves and develops targets are met, Uganda is achieving more than it had bargained for. We are simply spending more than we have. Okay. Good evening, Timothy. PDM money has no impact as far as development is concerned. They are just wasting government money while giving it to unequipped individuals, mostly drunkards, who most of the time are not skilled. They are using money to make profit, but rather they spoil it by going out to overdrink. PDM is used by government officials. Now we can give someone capital to use before training that person. Okay. Good evening to the panel. We are spending more than we have and on wrong priorities. Thank you very much. Yes, good evening. I want to salute the Honorable Semuju right now, I am sure every Ugandan should be listening, especially because this painkiller is going to be hard to swallow. Thank you. I am a very ready taker of painkillers. Okay. Lastly, I am closely following the discussion. I seem to love the topic of today because I have been biting my mind on the same issues. But sincerely, we are spending more than we can achieve, because since they started with PDM, the economy's status of beneficiaries, they have so far spent more money in the areas that have literally nothing to change them. I keep wondering every time I see testimonies, where are these people? Just words and politics, okay? The painkiller would be a painkiller. Honorable Semuju has coined a new word there. Lastly, my dearest Timothy, the show today, I like what we're listening to, but I'm safe. I'm listening to the 84 trillion coverage, but we are discussing big national goals. Let's remember the budget without deadlines. Accountability is a dream on paper. Watching keenly, this is Umar in Mbale. Okay, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritties of this, especially the ATMs and getting to the enablers there. This and more after this break.
So you have been...
Fellow Ugandans, on Thursday 11th June 2026, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development will read the budget speech for financial year 2026-2027 under the theme Full Monetization of Uganda's Economy through Commercial Agriculture, Industrialization, Expanding and Broadening Social Services, Digital Transformation and Market Access. To know the budget priorities and its opportunities, please listen to the budget speech on 11th June 2026. Our budget, our responsibility. This message is brought to you by the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and the Budget Transparency Initiative partners.
Today we are in Mackay College School, and we've got our winner, and that is none other than Michelle. I am sure you've already gotten the school fees, and the excitement is already there. Thank you so much.
Michelle has won school fees for a year. Never Zaba Momo. 3 times paid, cleared.
You can also stand a chance to win. You simply have to dial *165 *80# or use the Momo app. Schools that accept students to pay school fees using Momo also stand a chance to win a van. Pay your school fees. You never know, you could be the lucky winner.
The government's core mandate is to maintain law and order, safeguard citizens' rights, and provide essential public services.
Remember, one of the pillars of a roadmap is innovation and entrepreneurship.
There has been this question of how are you protecting our indigenous seed?
It's going to be a tall project that answers somebody's question.
The front bench has brought you insightful discussions on governance, security, healthcare, justice and commerce.
When you go through this complicated procedure, involve the lawyers, you bring the case against him, the judge will hear you out and pass judgment, and you're out of court in record time.
We remain committed to keeping you informed and engaged on key national matters.
So these are huge, these are powerful organizations which now Uganda shares. Why don't you come together?
If we haven't migrated to the e-card because of various reasons, including that not all the people of Uganda have smartphones.
You can sit in your house, apply for a passport.
If you have a Ugandan who has a successful logistics firm in the US, it means he can come to Uganda and do a lot more.
Every Monday at 8:30 p.m. with me, Jethro Kasaiji, your interface with the government only on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
Good evening and welcome back from that commercial break. The conversation is still going on here. Timothy is my name. I'm joined by Julia. I'm joined by Julius Mukunda, the Honorable Ibrahim Semujunganda, Professor Waswa Balunywa, and the Honorable Godfrey Kabyanga. We're discussing the 84 trillion budget that will affect you come 2026, 2027 in terms of taxes, but also the priorities government has chosen to put the money into. Before I get to Honorable Semuju, let me read these 2-3 messages here. Mubarak in Entebbe, can Honorable Semuju talk about the salaries of MPs? Very interesting. Okay, Rogers from Chitende, thank you for the show. I understand the motive of scrapping off the intern's allowance, yet the Office of the Speaker of Parliament has now a budget of about 25 billion. Okay. Finally, good evening, Timothy. I agree with the Honorable Semuju. PDM only benefits the rich, to be fair, but not to the common man in the village. Why? Look at the mode of farming that President normally visits. They belong to those who are senior in the government. It's unrealistic to sense that it does not solve the exact problems of the country. People have been producing good agriculture, but the problem is value addition. And finally, PDM leadership at the village and parish levels is corrupt. Someone had to pay 300,000 to get 600,000. Okay, interesting. Keep the messages coming. Honorable Semuju, let's get it into the nuts and bolts. These ATMs, is it just political rhetoric, or is it action to transform Ugandan lives?
I take a different approach when I'm looking at the budget. And the reason I do so, let me share with you what I shared with Parliament. In this budget, and as I said, this government is very generous. They will give you all the information. Those huge booklets that they table in Parliament and the Kabyangas never read, these NRM people, whose main job is to raise their hands to say yes. At the end of those documents, they provide the aggregated items on which they are going to spend money. It is easier to be told that there is money in agriculture when actually there is no money in agriculture. Salaries and vehicles. If you allow me, next financial year, as I said, we have welfare and entertainment, 211 billion.
Who's welfare and who's entertainment?
People who are in public offices.
Okay.
We have special meals and drinks, 536 billion. Even at Parliament, they have been giving us MPs are fairly paid. But every morning you are entitled to some sort of breakfast, including free lunch. You budget for the whole Parliament, and sometimes you'll have more MPs in the canteen than in the plenary. You don't have quorum to pass a matter, but if you check, because you will go and put your thumb and then you get a receipt to go and eat. So if you check how many MPs have eaten a day and how many MPs have attended plenary, there are more MPs in the canteen than those that are in the plenary. So you have I'll be very quick. Special meals and drinks, 539 billion. Travel inland, 1 trillion. Travel abroad, 207 billion. Fuel for the vehicles of big people, 515 billion. Donation, big people now want to donate 196 billion. You have no money for intern, about 23 billion.
28 billion.
28 billion. But there is money in the budget for donation, 196 billion. You have gas. I have never seen this before. Gas, firewood and charcoal, 17 billion. You have beddings and clothing, 176 billion. Official ceremonies and state functions, 29 billion. Maintenance of vehicles, you have 236 billion. Vehicles for new MPs, 166 billion. Buying vehicles, replacing the ones that have grown old, 232 billion. Furniture and fittings, and I want you to walk to Parliament, 84 billion. Because you have a new Parliament, I had furniture in my office, and they told me it's beginning of it, and they were taking away the furniture. Me, actually, I wanted the old furniture than the new one they were bringing. I said, no, me, I still want this one. So there is money for furniture, and even if the furniture is still okay, because there is money in the budget, you throw it in the corridor, and then they bring you have money for advertising and public relations. People like concentrating about Parliament, but the whole government, 187 billion. You have money for I spoke about classified expenditure, etc, etc. The total of what I am reading is about 8 trillion. Seminars, etc. And that's why I said I don't want to discuss the budget the government way. They will tell you agriculture, the ATMs, and you will actually think that there is money in look at the budget of industry in Uganda, the Ministry for Industry. It's less than even tourism. Because they will tell you we are now getting more money, which is a lie, from gold, about 6 billion, but that gold is trafficked through here, it's not our gold. That's why Bank of Uganda recently said that the money Uganda gets from gold is just about $200 million US. But the total budget, I saw the president reading a list of exports. Gold. Which gold are you exporting? Because you have these small refineries, so people come in and wash and take to the international market. So that gold is mainly from Congo. That's why you keep going to Congo in and out. Then you have Ugandans, we are now told by the official government documents that Ugandans who are outside are bringing 2.5 billion US dollar, followed by tourism at about 1.6. But if you look at the investment in tourism, if you want to go by ministry sector by sector, it is usually less than 100 billion. Then they will tell you, no, everything else is enabling tourism. Then they will tell you roads, etc, etc. So this budget, I don't want to go back to what I said. I told you, and I wanted to summarize the budget for anyone caring to listen. I am not a Professor Barumia, who is an economist. Me, I am an ordinary person who did journalism. 33 trillion debt servicing, 22 trillion salaries and staff expenses. That's about 70% of the budget. What remains is what you are going to be dividing in the sectors. But I've told you, if you look at works, already you have contractors that have stopped work because you have not paid them. You have been submitting bills and you're not paying. So, and it's not by accident that I said this is going to be a painkiller, because you are now talking about 84 trillion, thinking that that money is going to be realized and it's going to be released. Because this government sometimes releases air. And I see it in the newspapers that the minister has now released the money for the second quarter. And that's why when you're looking at areas, they had hit 12 trillion. Because they make government departments incur and contract suppliers, and then they don't pay them. Because last financial year, the budget we passed must have been about 72 trillion. 72. Yeah. Then you added another 8 trillion in supplementary, coming to about 80. But the money realized was less than 70. So every financial year, that huge figure that you see, the actual money realized is always less by either 14 trillion, 12 trillion, 11 trillion. It is only Parliament, State House, and a few departments where the release will be 100%. But agriculture, they will tell you have 1.1 trillion, and then they're going to release 700 billion, including universities and everything else. So the big budget, and that's what I told these Kabyangas, their cabinet. They want to create an impression that the economy is growing, we are okay. Interestingly, if you give them an opportunity, everybody is going to be complaining, including NRM people. One day I asked them, you guys, maybe your opposition, we didn't, you know. Because the NRM was complaining more than us. My road is not done, my this is not done. I said, you are in government, you're supposed to say everything is done. So the budget, until it is structured, the president at one time said, I think it must have been 20 something, he said that a group of Sare, meaning his brother, had identified 7 trillion in the budget that needs to be reallocated. And what I have read is what he also listed. Seminars, welfare and entertainment, this, but that money was never restructured. It remained. I asked Musasizi, who by the way is a very good minister, and I was happy Musasizi was promoted because he's the one who was doing finance. I asked him, because, and he told me these are called the chart of accounts. So they will give you a ceiling that next financial year, if you are agriculture, you are going to spend 1 trillion, and they will give you the items to spend on. Travel, even if you don't want to travel, there is money for travel. They will give you money for welfare, entertainment, whether you want to be entertained or not. Because there are people like Kabiang, I've never seen him happy. But in the budget, he has money for entertainment. So the items are there. It's like they are ordained it's like they are ordained from God that you have 1 trillion and you're going to spend on the following items.
You must put in
so you begin distributing the money you have been authorized to budget under the following items. So and the president knows it. It's not that I am saying something new, because this is his budget. It's prepared with his participation. So if you want to change and make the budget meaningful, restructure it, remove money that is wasted. Yeah, that was discussing Parliament, and I said I have been an MP for 15 years. Not even a single shilling of my salary has been taken away, because this is money that goes to a person that exists. But if you begin staffing in the budget, money for meals, money for entertainment, money for donation, money for everything, and then you begin to complain that they are wasting it. So why did you put it there in the first place? So the president of Chisanja no sleep. I don't know why he doesn't want to sleep after 41 years in power, because it appears to me he says they have been sleeping for 41 years. So now they want to wake up. Corruption and so on. Let them first restructure. And Kenya, listen, and I told them in Parliament, Kenya said they want to move away, they are restructuring their human resource, and they said we want more technical people than support staff. These Kabiangas, each minister has a driver, a secretary, bodyguards. So you employ one minister and then he has 10, 20 support staff. The president himself employs at State House about 1,600 people, 94 cooks. I asked NRM people, what does our president eat in a day? 94 cooks. And then around there, what? And it's duplicated in all government. So you look at the human resource public service, 400,000, and ask them what are they doing, all of them, for us to have 22 trillion spent on staff, on their salaries, on entertaining them, on buying them meals. When the president came here in 1986, the first thing he did was to restructure the public service. Today the public service, I think people, even if you don't know, because I looked at the list of staff which they provide together with the budget of State House. You have Butcherman, you have Catherine Kusasira, they are the one who are supposed to advise your president. The level of abuse, Kabiang, you have abused people. You go and collect taxes, because next financial year you are targeting to collect about 30. You've increased the money on fuel, which certainly will increase money on production. You have increased the money for people who are moving money, using mobile money and so on and so forth. So collectively you go and pick money from. They have even developed a new app, these people in government. They said they now want everybody to be buying government bonds, including your grandmother in the village. They will be using mobile money to buy. So they want to go direct and pick money from your grandmother's pocket and then come and use it for entertainment, for special meals. Why don't you restructure the budget, spend money on the industries? So the ATMs that you are talking about as a slogan, as PDM, because just interrogate each. How much money are they putting in ICT? And how much taxes have they imposed now on ICT related? How much taxes? Then you look at the money they are putting in tourism, because they want to develop the economy, tourism, agro-processing, and so on and so forth. How much money is in agriculture? I don't agree with Professor Barunyo that people cannot develop through agriculture. I don't entirely agree. I was in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia wanted to begin growing food, and they told them it's going to be very expensive if you do it in Saudi Arabia. They identified Uganda, Ethiopia, and I think Djibouti. They wanted to bring money here. But this government of Kabyanga, their ministries, they spend a whole year discussing how to help Saudi Arabia grow food here. Then they went to, I think, Djibouti and I don't remember other countries. The Middle East, that desert consumes a lot of food, which they don't grow. That's where you have an advantage. You have 10.6 million youth who are aged 18 to 30. They are in Chireka discussing Arsenal and Man U every morning. If the industries haven't developed, why don't you utilize them in agriculture? They will go there and dig and process, because they can easily walk in. This country that receives the highest amount of rainfall in the world, irrigation is at 1%, and they are borrowing money. The Minister of Finance recently did a study, because in every budget you will have external funded projects. Next financial year is about 11 trillion external funded projects. The recent study by Finance of 50 projects externally funded, 46 out of 50 had delayed or even stalled, including the Ginger Expressway. We borrowed money from African Development Bank, about $300 million. That money has remained there for 5 years. Look, here, not very far from where we are sitting, parliamentary building, started in 2014. We thought the 10th parliament will sit in, it has gone. The 11th parliament has gone, they are still constructing. So by the NRM standards, even if you give them the money, these fellows, even if you give them the money and they had it, 50 projects for which we have borrowed the money, 46 either stalled or delayed. And they will give you information, very generous people. The level of naivety, you salute it. Because you should be hiding those things, but they will publish books to say for us the 56 projects for which we borrowed the money, 46 have stalled. It's only the stadium in Hoima and Entebbe Airport and a few others that have been completed on time. The rest they will start. Look at the road from here to Fort Porto going to Kabyanga's constituency in Kasese. They have been constructing that road for the last more than 10 years. By the time they complete it, it will need repair where they started. So you wonder, so even if, because the policies are good. Someone who wants to change government, who wants to transform Uganda, you don't need to coin any policy. These policies are good. If you read every policy proposal, very good. I think there they have invested appropriately. But implementation is zero. The president has been sleeping for 41 years. Now he says everybody must wake up. But look at this. The human resources he has assembled to do this work. I keep saying, for me, anyone who cannot get a job in the private sector, and I'm in government, please don't knock at my door. Tell me, starting with the vice president, which company in Uganda will employ them, apart from NRM. That you have a company that wants to make profit, and they write your NRM cabinet list, starting with the Jessica Rupo, High Excellence. Tell me a single company, even you here, UTV, UBC, you'll never employ any of them. But they are in the government, each has a convoy, and the president says, no sleeping. They are already sleeping even before you make the proclamation.
Let me come to Julius. Julius, you and I have had conversations about the debt of the country, domestic arrears, and disbursed loans. When you couple all those things together, what is the cost for Uganda?
Yeah, the cost is really there, and I think you want to look at these numbers. And I think today morning I was trying, somebody also tickled me and said, I said, oh, we are going to have 14 trillion in interest payment, but we are going to collect 39 trillion in terms of revenue. So all that has already gone, because we are able to collect and we must pay. We must pay that. So right now I think we are saying that around 25–26% of the amount of money we collect from URA will directly have to go to payment of interest. And this is above the benchmark that we gave ourselves. And you might want to say, forget about this. What do we look at? The impact on an ordinary person is that as you try to struggle so much to meet your debt obligations, certain things will have to give away. For example, if medical interns, for example, that's what we're talking about, that you don't have money for medical interns because already your fiscal space in terms of meeting your debt obligation is so skewed to the extent that you can't cough out the 23 billion required for the interns. So you remain with two choices. Either you have to increase the tax rates, and I think Professor has demonstrated that it is going to be extremely very difficult to improve our tax to GDP ratio. So you have to look at the tax rates we have and say let's increase them, or you have to go and borrow more. So you are in a catch-21 situation about that. But I think for me is that we don't need to go that very far. One of the things we think about is we need to stop and start afresh in terms of our budgeting. And probably some of these excesses in the budget can get away. The other element where the debt really affects an ordinary person is that as you start to squeeze them to increase more taxes, then certain companies are likely to close. We are being told that for 4 out of 5 businesses in this country don't see their 50th birthday. And when you go back, you find out that the cost of credit in this country for the private sector is just to the roof. Because me and you, we are all in the same banking hall looking for the same amount of money from the government of Uganda, from the commercial banks. So the interest rates are so high because we are competing with the government. There is, I think it's Bank of Uganda, I think, came up with information that actually we take more than 86% of the credit allocation in this country, 86% go to government. So they have almost completed all of it. So the little that remains, now the banks really are beginning to increase the interest payment. So that crowds out the private sector. So I don't care whether government really needs to look for concessional, non-concessional loans, but if these non-concessional loans are abroad, then at least you leave this market for your private sector-led economy that you talk about. So that becomes a very huge impact. But also something I think which Professor has mentioned and that has attracted my attention. When you begin to subsidize, because remember, what we are saying is we are borrowing very expensively, and we are lending out to these small groups at an affordable price. We are distorting the market. I don't know how we are going to do that, but really it is also distorting because now people actually are not. You are waiting for three things. Therefore, even if you don't have proper books of accounts, even if you don't have a very good plan, you are likely to be able to get this money. So innovation is actually you kill it very quickly. So we need to find out how can we ensure that our economic empowerment programs really do not heavily distort the market. The argument that these banks actually don't want to give private sector funds because they are risky, I think for me it's because there is so little money and so many people are competing for this type of money that is within the saturation. The other part I think for me is on the domestic areas, is that we really keep on, if we don't pay the private sector for giving us goods and services, we're really killing the same cow that we are trying to milk to get revenue out of it. And we need really to be disciplined here, is that government needs to wake up and pay. So that one of the reasons why our budget actually has got these huge figures is that because the cost of supplying to government is actually very, very, very high. You find that a pen like this from the same supplier being supplied to different departments of government, it has got different prices far above the market price. And the suppliers are telling you it is because it takes so long for government to pay. And that is costing us in terms of the budget allocations, but also even the private sector, because if it takes long to pay, the guy is likely to close his business because he cannot pay his employees, he cannot pay for the bills, he cannot pay for rent, because all the money is stuck in the government. So I think for me, really, I'm looking for the president really tomorrow to be able to speak to these things very directly.
Julius, before I leave you to come to Julia, the domestic arrears, about 14 trillion there. And the government this financial year was giving out 1.4 trillion shillings. It has then dropped to 600 billion. What informed this deduction?
No, they don't want to pay. Really, for me, they don't want to pay, because if they were able to get money, they don't want to pay, because the money is not there. I mean, if really the government was an individual, by now it would be in prison. People would take it to prison. Would take it to prison. The argument has been that some of these areas are not verified, but the auditor general verifies these areas every year. So whom do we want to follow? Or why can't we sit down and verify these areas? But I think the other big part of these areas are court settlements, and that's why I have come to say that really, if you're an accounting officer, you wake up and fire people at your own pressure, and they sue you because you did it wrongly, and now you expect me, the taxpayer, to meet that cost. That should stop. This reckless behavior by some accounting officers. You have now here boards firing chief executive officers, district firing, and somebody takes you to court, the court awards them money, and they say, please charge the consolidated fund, as if I was there. So I think one of the things we also need to look at is, to what extent should we, the taxpayers, stand in to pay for some of these reckless decisions that cost us money? That should really stop.
Thank you. Julia, these ATMs, these areas that are there, how does a young person position themselves to leverage on their potential on all this that government is doing in this budget?
Interesting. ATMS, for me, I would start with the enabling factors. That's the human capital development. It's quite alarming. Semju earlier gave an example of higher education. I would give the lower example of UPE, and then it takes me back to government really tracking outcomes. The other time we saw the Ministry of Education together with you both giving out the statistics of enrollment in especially the lower learning levels all through. And then you realize that even the little, because we have questioned the numbers, the percentages that are allocated to key sectors and all of that, but oftentimes I want to take my argument even beyond definitely our allocations towards human capital development are still below the required threshold. But even the minimum that we are spending, I don't think we're actually getting value for it. For example, at early learning, you would see I think we've had this conversation of focusing on the politics of it, and usually the politics calls for the popular feedback. For example, from education, you would want to report as government this is a number of people that are enrolling through IUPE. But in actual sense, you're not reporting that even those that come to the UPE are not learning the learning outcomes, because if you read the World Bank report, it shows about 80% are victims of learning poverty, which means 8 in 10 children, every 8 in 10 children cannot read a basic sentence by the age of 10. So then it makes you question, with the minimum that we are allocating, is it a question of the underinvestment or also a follow-through on tracking the outcomes of that? The reason I keep giving education as an example is for the 10x economy the growth we are trying to achieve, we still need the skills, we still need the education of the human resources. Some of these industries are key, minerals. You're not going to employ any who, you still need to train them to be in position to work in that specific sector. But beyond that, the enabling and everything, you realize that, for example, agro-industrialization. I am a strong believer that agriculture can, especially in Africa, agriculture is one of those hopeful factors if linked to the industry, and I think that's the whole agro-industrialization. As long as we are still treating it in solo and focusing on, for example, they'll tell you, they have told us 70% of the people are into agriculture, but for definitely a country that has over 78% young people, you definitely know they make up a big percentage of those that are into agriculture. But when you go down to the village level, you realize the agriculture we are talking about is the growing of maize, and then definitely from growing it, you sell it. But I think beyond government giving money, I think the biggest enabling factor would be government taking on projects. There is a full ecosystem. When we are having these conversations, we tend to focus on government. And I think the biggest problem government has been facing is oftentimes it's trying to work in silo. The reason I'm saying that, for example, when you look at the skilling hubs, I think the innovations was allocated over 1.1 trillion in the budget. When you look at the whole innovation sector, government is trying to skill. We have a lot of development partners skilling. So you have very many people skilling. By the end of the day, the statistics will show you that over 51% of young people are not in education, they're not in trading, they're not in employment, they are nowhere. But you have very many actors doing the same thing. And you have in government spending where it would have, for example, collaborated with an actor, and then either they share the costs or have something implemented. So I think moving forward, government must also, from the young people's perspective, because young people do not have the same competitive advantage to compete for either the licensing in minerals, so you know for a fact that government has to take deliberate steps to establish quotas either along the value chain for young people to benefit. But beyond that, as I was talking about agriculture, we realized that we need to also move beyond just giving them the seedling and giving them the 1 million to do something in agriculture, because for a fact it can only be beneficial if it's done on scale with a lot of innovation and the value addition that we keep talking about. But again, when you look at the the medium and small enterprises, the small enterprises that make out the biggest percentage of the economy, 90% of them are owned by young people. And then we're talking about, we've been talking about how to take advantage of trade. Definitely, if they're going to participate in agriculture, value addition, they're doing whatever they're doing. But again, they lack the basic knowledge on export procedures, rules of origin, or even the standard of how to certify, how to make sure their products meet the market. There is just no knowledge, because you understand the economy we are talking about. We've been told majority of them are non-land, majority of them are into agriculture. So then, what then is government's role beyond just giving the money? Yes, there is a lot of robust training that must be done, just not from government, because usually government's role is trying to identify the key actors it can work with to make sure most of these projects run through their lifespan. From the angle of young people, especially for like tourism, we have very many ambitious projects. They have been interrogated, from hosting, I think, the football games to partnering with key. There's a time I saw the incoming minister say, I think they are trying to get one of the Premier League teams, I don't know, to partner, which are really, those are very, very ambitious goals. But I think before we jump onto the ambitious goals and just spend money anyhow, the government can take advantage of. I think we saw what happens when Arsenal won Premier League. Uganda was marketed free of charge by its own citizens. So I think even the approaches we use within government should be citizen-centered. That's a way that more jobs will be created. But to look at it from the angle of young people, the education system has done us more harm than good. No matter how many times we shall scream for young people to start up, beyond the legislation actually, or the tax framework and the business regulation affecting them to start up something, because we also just do not want them to start up small things. We want to see them through the innovation and discover things that can actually bring in so much money in the economy. There must be a lot of support coming in from the government. So we are, on behalf of young people, we are not sorry that we keep shooting at government, because the education system we've gone through, I'll tell you for a fact that I'm a student. My bachelor's was in international business and trade. I know how profitable trade is. I actually taught trade for 2 years, but I've never ever thought of practicing in trade. And that's how bad it gets. But at the end of the day, we are expected to do a lot. So I think with the ATMS, the horizon, the president and the government keeps emphasizing it, is there is a lot of opportunity, if handled well, that can come through it. But again, from the young people's perspective, we must still be positioned to not only compete and participate in the whole transformation of the country, because what we usually forget is, now for example, the government has a new scheme, I think the graduate scheme. They want to give money to graduates. So with young people, it's a bit complicated, because okay, now you're going to give the graduates that are graduating this year. I don't even know how feasible that really is. I think it brings us back to it's just the focus of, okay, we've given this number of people this amount of money to start up something, without actually addressing the underlying factors as to why even those who have access to capital have failed to thrive, or even those that have access or that can start up very beautiful innovation things have failed to actually succeed. So I think from the government perspective, there's a lot that really needs to be to sit through and change in a way or two, to have an enabling environment, because I'm a strong believer that young people in this country are highly innovative, they are creative, they can really do so much, but I think what is missing is the enabling factor and the political will from the government to actually
Thank you. Let me come to Honorable Kabyanga. Honorable Semuju talked about the 80 standards.
First of all, let me first tell Semuju that I'm always happy. And Timothy, you know that I'm the happiest minister. And you know Semuju always wants, probably he always meets me when I'm not happy. You know, when we are talking about agro-industrialization, we shouldn't limit it to Atiak or probably the fruit factory. We are also looking at the smallholder, what I would call the smallholder farmers. These people who say Muju doesn't want to listen to, these ones who are getting the PDM money. You are getting me? So that they can produce for these industries. I think one big thing before I come to that PDM has one problem. You know, there are 7 pillars. But unfortunately, we are concentrating on only what? One pillar. Financial services, financial inclusion. But what the professor was talking about, that most of these people in agriculture are illiterate. There is a pillar there which is actually even was supposed to be executed by my ministry. Mindset what? Mindset change. And there is no money that has been allocated to it. We are concentrating on financial inclusion. But actually, what should have happened, the two would have been done concurrently. And if we had done that, it would have solved the problem which Professor was coming up with. Because we are not going to say we abandon these illiterate farmers. And even if we say we industrialize, some of them will not even get jobs in in industry, because they are illiterate. So we still need to move with them till we reach that stage which the professor is talking about, and then we shall go eliminating them story by story. Now, when it comes to the fruit factory in Soroti, the biggest problem are the fruits themselves. At first, people went into fruit growing, and there were a lot of fruits, and then the factory was not functioning at its capacity. So I think people lost a lot of produce, and some of them even cut cut mangoes, cut the oranges. Two, we have some other problem in this country. Some of these factories need homogeneity, sort of. If you are going to use pineapples, those pineapples must be of the same species, and probably you even assure they are the same size. Now those are some of the challenges which we normally get. People just see mangoes, but the issue is there's so many mangoes you are seeing cannot even blend, and then it becomes a big problem. But now government is putting in a lot of effort to see that the fruit factory can start operating, and they save those farmers all the losses. The Atiak factory, I went there I think last year at the beginning of last year. I had ideological orientation training in Agago, and one of the projects we visited is Atiak factory, and I found there one big challenge. You know, that place can be hot sometimes, and therefore for us to produce enough cane for the plant to start functioning well, we shall need to apply irrigation. And that was one of the biggest problems. But cane is being planted.
So you mean we didn't know that that place is hot?
No, now those are the things I'm coming up with. Cane is being planted. They had put up dams. And
see, if the minister can allow, just a second. This guy of coffee in Ntungamo,
Inspire Coffee.
He said they want to establish a factory, we spend money for him to export processed coffee. I am told people who consume coffee, the smell, you cannot produce coffee in Ntungamo. By the time it reaches Italy, it has lost this.
Even the arguments won't allow us
the
to do
aroma.
That.
So they have said now he wants a runway. So we are going to produce the most expensive coffee in the world. After giving him money, he now wants a runway to begin exporting coffee.
Our agreements with the European Union will not allow us to export processed coffee.
What?
So the Honorable Kayanga said, I was looking at sugar. See, the place is very hot. So when did you discover that it is hot?
No, that's what I'm coming. That's where I'm coming. But now they establish big dams to capture water, and so far a lot of planting is ongoing. But they are also trying to see whether they can tap water from the Nile, so that we can plant more canes, and to be able to support the plant. There were also issues, obviously, with the UDC. Is it UDC, I think? Because the proprietor wanted to buy direct. There were issues of procurement between the proprietor and the government agency. which was executing the project. And that one also took a lot of time to resolve, because the proprietor wanted to buy direct, and now the agency wanted to follow procurement and then get supplier and the like. So that one also took a lot of time. But now all those things are being what? Are being sorted. And I think very soon we shall have sugar from Atiak. For Honorable Semuju, you know, you always throw camaraderie in everything. The issue of a runaway, that one was discarded. Because when he came up with, you know, the proprietor, Tugume, is a young man with a lot of ambition and so many projects at the same time. And the president, that one, he said that runaway is not an issue now. Let us concentrate on processing the what? The coffee. But just as the professor has also said, when you're processing that coffee,
you won't take it to Europe.
You don't need to be as if you're going to compete with the big brothers. Because you can't say now, I want to kick off Nescafe. Those are brands which are...
Let me ask a question. Sugar, the weather, fruits disappearing, trees being cut.
Chira, banana.
Yes, bananas, then there is coffee. What informed this feasibility study? Because
they are not there.
Wouldn't an industry of sugar be preferred in the eastern part of the country? Wouldn't coffee be preferred in the central region or in the eastern of Mbale, Sironko? What informed this? Because you seem like you didn't envision these challenges and you were shocked by them.
What I think what we are trying to do as government is to see how each region should have some projects that can really serve it and attract. You know, some of these projects attract a lot of other things like employment in a place, and therefore that's why some of those projects are started in those regions. That's why even industries are being decentralized.
Has been very negative with the sugar cane growing in Busoga. So it will now develop actually.
I think it's not really very negative about sugar cane growing.
Go into fishing, go into this. So after sugar cane failing in Busoga now it will...
it's only not... I think Professor Balu Nyazisi comes from Busoga.
I sit on the Marivan board, so
exactly.
I'll tell you. Yes.
But it's not really very, very negative. But for him, he thinks some things like sugar cane growing probably... I think it's about his biggest problem is on rice in wetlands. And the sugarcane growing, I think Professor Valunya must be having a lot of information about it. It also has its own cartels which have been working towards making it unprofitable for smallholder farmers to benefit. And I think that's where his problem is. But
let me widen the conversation. The president has talked about 21 products to be put on the market. He even increased them to be 31, says they're projected to be 50, said we leave the 3 T's and the 3 C's. What informs this agriculture idea that government has, and where is the feasibility to inform it?
Timothy, this is an agriculture country. We can even produce 100 what? products. If we are really very serious. But let me also tell you one thing. Some of these, I think Honorable Semuju has been in Parliament, and my brother here from Sesbag. Even some of these loans which you see stranded, you know, you go and get a loan, and embedded in the loan is a feasibility study. You're getting the problem. And me, that's why, and me, I'm from government. I can't shy away. You're getting how do you get a loan? and then imported in the loan, you say you're going to make a what? That's where the problem is. And I think Professor Balun, I know, has been a consultant. Those are the things they are finding in most of those loans which are stuck. Because, and the issue is, what informs you to get the what? That amount of loan. That is the biggest problem, Timothy. And that's where the problem is. And what now we should do is to really re-examine ourselves. And all that, actually, I call even that one corruption. We should really re-examine ourselves and say, if we are going to get a loan, let us start with the what? Feasibility study. Okay. So that we know what we are getting a loan. Like Honorable Semujia was talking about all these expenses, allowances. I think we are now trying to rationalize. Now no more public celebrations. So from there we shall go in.
Where did we start with the donation?
We shall now all that we are coming to. Even you are teas in parliament we are going to cut.
I hope so. Thank you. Let me bring in Professor.
Yes. I think Professor can give us the real picture of the sugar.
Yes.
Because it's very conversant.
There is these ATMs, there are these enablers that have infrastructure. I've heard the Honorable Semuju say, if there are 10 roads, 6 are eaten before the 4 are made. But infrastructure is there. There is also enablers of electricity to be there. And we also have a balance of trade deficit that is there. What can we do to correct this?
I think the ATMs is a wonderful idea. Tourism is a low-hanging fruit for Uganda. I mean, we don't have really to do so much in terms of competition. You're not competing with anybody. But for a long time, we've not developed our tourist sites. The source of the Nile is only one longest river in the world. You go and see how it looks like. They will now put a building there. But I think we didn't invest in that as a tourist attraction. Because it's amazing that this wonderful source of the Nile is not developed. I mean, you know, the people, they've now put something and the traders are complaining, but this should have been done 30 years ago. So tourism is a low-hanging fruit. It's something that needs a bit of teaching and it will work. The other areas in terms of agriculture and the minerals, there is an ideological issue. Government has not resolved whether it is pursuing a policy of private sector-led growth or it should have government in it. So the projects that government is funding, I think right now they've kind of sorted it out. Go to UDC. Go to UDC. I mean, look at Uganda Clays. They need some little money. And it's one of Uganda's indigenous companies. It is listed. It should be funded. But nobody's funding it. And yet, it's continues to produce. But it's because of the lack of resolution at the ideological level. That is identifying where we should put the money. Busoga has 8 sugar factories. 8? 8. Yes. 2 things. Of those 8, there's no government money in it. Other than, I think, possibly the loan that was given to the Marivanis that time, long ago, some $50 million in the 80s. The rest have been established by the private sector. That's fine. Let's take agriculture, let's take sugarcane as belonging both to agriculture and industry. And what is the problem? If you have less than 10 acres of sugar cane, you will never make money in sugar. You can't. Same is true of maize production. So, when I was saying let's abandon, I didn't say let us abandon agriculture. I'm saying the people who are in agriculture are illiterate or semi-illiterate. They are using production methods which, cannot compete with anybody. Our productivity is so low. The cost of borrowing is, for those who are in the formal sector, is very high, by the way.
Yes.
Because our interest rates are 17%. And usually, interest rates should be inflation. The bank rate, central bank rate, should be a few percentage points above inflation. Inflation in this country has been between 3 and 5% for a long time.
Yeah.
And so bank rate should be about 8%, and the commercial bank rate should be about 10-12%. But minimum is 17%. And what is the problem? We're inefficient. As a country, we're inefficient from the financial perspective. So we are lending money to the private sector at such a high cost. And then you bring in, you distort the markets by giving these other guys money either free or at 10% or 6%. So the day they succeed and get into the open market, they'll be blown away. So agriculture, yes, you need to have people to have slightly larger farms so that they can be able to have higher levels of productivity. I mean, with less than 10 acres of maize, of sugar cane, you won't make the money. So let these people leave agriculture and go to industry, but they can only go if they're educated.
Yeah.
They can only go there if they're educated. And then the other problem is, I've told you here that 70% of Uganda's population who join P1 don't make it to P7. And these are about 20 million people or so today. Now, in terms of business, in terms of entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur is somebody who generates innovations. Okay? Innovations create industry. Now, if the entrepreneur is illiterate or semi-illiterate, cannot use this phone to generate new ideas for business, for better business, what kind of business are they going to have? They're going to sell old clothes and ride on border. Border is very expensive as a means of transport. Very expensive. As a country, we are very inefficient in terms of transportation. So we need to address the ideological issue that where should government participate and what is the criteria, so that we do not fund what is it, attack. I remember, I think when this lady was starting this factory, I knew, I related with her very well. She started, she was, I mean, very ambitious, very hard-working lady. And I think at some stage she realized it was too much. That's when she went to government. And of course, the president, in his usual way, if there's a project that he feels can be supported, he'll support it. But now that is where the ideological issues come in. Now, the Sorot Fruit Factory is also a mixture of ideological issues. You have Korean government giving equipment, you start a government company to run it, and the private sector is supplying the fruits. There's no way it will work. Absolutely. These two don't, I mean, with due respect, that arrangement, let this go either to the private sector completely or to government. Again, an ideological issue in terms of decision. Government should be very firm on which areas should the government go in to support, and how do we select those projects. That is something which the ideologues in the NRM should be able to finalize. So agriculture yes, will grow only if you have bigger farms which have high levels of productivity. And if Luz is going to sell his factory because of electricity, it is telling you about mechanization. You know, today, I mean, the mechanization level has gone so high. The Industrial Revolution in 1760 mechanized agriculture production. Today, we still use a hoe in agriculture. There is no way we shall be competitive.
And the bottle for irrigation.
Yeah. So, so in the minerals, I think here the president has done very well. The biggest factory in this country is in my village in Iganga. I actually say we're the most industrialized village in this country. Tembo steel mills. I mean, they've got 200 acres of land doing that, trying to do, because we're exporting iron ore. We are now processing it in the country. That's very good. It's producing jobs for the people, you know. But there's a bit of need to streamline policy there. I've seen technicians, some of our engineers in that factory, but most times they come from India. So can we identify more minerals so that we do not export raw materials? If we don't export raw materials, then we can have higher quality jobs. But remember, the people are not literate. That 70% of the population is not literate. So even when the jobs come,
Interesting, you said they are not literate. Yet the most recent report shows literacy has gone up to 84%. But some messages here.
Literacy is just reading sentences.
Remember, let's sort out the literacy thing. Go to the Ministry of Education website. We were here discussing it. It will tell you that the people who make it in, who get to P7 are between 25 to 35% of those who enter P1. This year I was a commencement speaker in one of the universities, and I realized that 70,000 people graduated degrees, but if you go back to P1, who entered, there are 1.76 million.
Wow. Let me read this feedback. Good evening, Timothy. Well done. And salam to the panelists in the studio. I have nothing much to say, but I want to congratulate Honorable Semuju for being very bold. It only takes a person that has such a mind to be able to call out the things that are happening in our country, the transparency and everything. Surely Uganda's parliament and the citizens will miss him. This is Ramadan from Palisa. Okay, thank you, Ramadan. The biggest problem of our country is corruption, quite deep-rooted, and therefore no matter how massive the budget money is, unless the management attitude changes, we shall not expect any different results. This is Alex from Fort Portal. Okay? Timothy, thank you very much. I want to thank the Honorable Semuju, but also I want to let him know that the budget on entertainment means buying water for the guests that come. Okay, interesting. When you buy food, you contribute to the people. I am Dr. Clifton, coordinator of PLU and in the division of Ivanda. Okay. Timothy and the team, thank you very much for what is happening there. People in Teso have information that the factory has already been sold to a private investor. The former minister in the house is saying government is putting resources to make it function. Which information is true? What can the minister be able to clarify on that? This is Julius. Thank you, Julius.
That what?
The factory is already sold.
The factory is already sold. Okay. Edward Nkase says, I'm afraid not. I will not sleep tonight. The expenditure priorities of this budget, I have a kind proposal. Government, kindly copy the Asian tiger approach, and for once be honest. The Honorable Semuju and many of the people here have been honest, and we thank them. Okay. Finally, James from Gulu says, Honorable Kabyanga, to remind you that River Unyama runs right through a Tiak sugar plant. Why are we building dams there? It's the same river which goes and floods in Elegu town every year. The river runs through the year. Okay, we'll leave the messages at that. So we'll get to parting shots, and I'll start with Julia here, Julius, Honorable Semuju, Professor, and finally the Honorable Kabyanga.
Thank you once again to the viewers, to government. Please reconsider paying medical intern. That's really important. And then secondly, I think a lot of effort has to be focused on oversight. Before we scale the very brilliant ideas on paper, we need to test them and then allocate. We do not have the luxury to just waste our resources anyhow, so it is very important that this financial year, hopefully, and all the coming years, government really pays key attention on how it efficiently utilizes the limited resources before it decides on where and how to spend it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Julius, over to you.
Yes, just two things. One is to my fellow citizens, to tell them that tomorrow is the budget speech. It's going to come out. Take time to listen in. Take time to identify some opportunities that are there. But for me, most importantly is please look forward to monitor the budget, how it is implemented in your own areas and your own village, so that resources are not wasted. And probably also to the President is that probably we want to hear more tomorrow on really the specific measures that are going to put in place, so that at least we can stop wastage of our resources, especially to deal with issues around corruption. We would love very much to hear that, so that at least we know that every shilling counts. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Samuel.
This budget was passed by Parliament I think in mid-May. Made proposals, recommendations to restructure it. We lost that opportunity. There's been a lot of shouting because corruption in Uganda is not just the money that they steal, it's money people share, official and eat. I have told you, an MP, you are paid fair. They give you lunch even if you don't take it. It is in the budget. Special meals, whether you like them or not. They will have been sitting on the committee on budget. We are about 40. Each morning they bring a breakfast, but only 7 of us are present. And sometimes you come when you have taken a breakfast from home. And then you have children in primary school who go hungry every day. You are feeding people who can feed themselves, they are not even interested in your food. And then you spend 300 billion. The trouble with NRM is that the President said he wants people who can sleep as long as they wake up and vote NRM. And now he says, please don't sleep. But that's a campaign he has had for a very long time. I don't know whether we need a machine to switch them on now.
No, he said no more sleep.
But he said I want people who sleep as long as they wake up to vote.
So now no more sleep.
That's why I said maybe, because that has been their training. So we need a machine to switch them on. Tomorrow's budget already passed. It's just the speech that we are waiting. Government has capacity to revise the budget. And I want to hear that in the speech that we are revising. I have seen a lot of drama at Parliament. Money for donation is going to reduce. Go to the aggregate figure in the budget, not just the money at Parliament. Everybody who is donating, if you say donation must go away, it should go away. If you say entertainment, it should go away. But you don't concentrate publicity around one sector, and then the Kaviangas are still donating. I am just looking for that Museveni who used to put on a Kaunda suit and using plastic plates and buying furniture from Waise and selling vehicles to ministers. Because these ministers, I come from Chazan. Government officials are using public vehicles to go and check on their cows. That can stop. I hope so.
Professor Wanyo.
Yeah, a budget, as I said earlier on, is an expression of the intentions of the people who make it. And to me, government has already done its intentions, and as the Honourable says, possibly there is need to revisit it. But to me, government needs to think, to sort out its ideological issues in terms of ownership of businesses and funding of industries. I think the route of UDC is good. It should be emphasized, but the selection of these organizations should be based really on ideological issues. Two, there is need to fund education. I would rather put all this money into funding education so that you reduce on the literacy level, so that when you are funding business startups, you are funding people who are educated, who can then start a business that can compete. The quality of any, the most important resource in any country are the people. And that, the quality of the people in the country determines its productivity and its prospects for growth. With these 20 million people who have never reached P7, there is no way this country is going to transform. So you need a long-term projection, 10, 15 years, to be able to get people to a literate level, which can then go and start businesses that are competitive, knowing very well that most businesses die before they are 1 year old. So there is need to invest money in education, especially in science education, which the Prince has done, but the money is not getting there. And identify those priorities in agriculture, which can then give us, the production that we want. But we must address the infrastructure.
Thank you.
Electricity especially.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lastly,
to my sister, I think the issue of interns, because it has it's on his mind. Fortunately, I was with the Minister of Health, Dr. Wayumusi, today, and I think they are going to revisit the whole issue. There are discussions which are ongoing, and that's what he told me. I think that's one of the first assignments he's going to do. On Soroti Food Factory, government has not sold the food factory, but there is a management contract with the private person. There is a management contract with the private person, but not an outright what? Not the sale. On Atiak, yes, there is a river which goes through the Atiak sugar plantation.
David Madven has Lake Victoria, but it still gets.
Yeah, but I don't still remember the size of the farm. It's so many square miles of land where they are going to plant that the sugar cane, and that river cannot supply enough water to all that. Yeah, they have to pump a lot of water, and so that's why they have even made dams, and they are now thinking about getting water from the River Nile if they are to succeed. And the feasibility studies are already in place. And when it comes to ATMs, yes, government is going to invest in ATMs, but the enablers are very, very crucial. Because the cost of doing business here is high because of electricity. Electricity itself. The only cheapest thing in this country is labor. But when it comes to electricity, very, very high. And I think the Professor Barunya, who are in education, let us also start training our people, our children, based on our economy. Otherwise, I think universities should also change the way they are doing things. So we shall need skills, education skills, to serve the ATMs. We shall need electricity. We shall need good roads, because you can't spend 8 hours going to Kasese. By air, it's very expensive, $300 return ticket. So these enablers are very important, and we need also to improve our health care, because it is only a health population that can be very productive. So we need to invest in these enablers so that we can service the ATMs.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to the gentleman and lady that have come to be able to discuss this patent issue, but also for you who has been able to watch us up to this very hour. I also want to thank the ones that have sent through messages, the production team that has made today possible. But we'll end today with this quote: "Waste neither time or money, but make use of both." Good morning.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Fellow Ugandans, on Thursday 11th June 2026, the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development will read the budget speech for financial year 2026-2027 under the theme Full Monetization of Uganda's Economy through Commercial Agriculture, Industrialization, Expanding and Broadening Social Services, Digital Transformation and Market Access. To know the budget priorities and its opportunities, please listen to the budget speech on 11th June 2026. Our budget, our responsibility. This message is brought to you by the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, and the Budget Transparency Initiative partners.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Missing, and as of the latest updates, India's Ministry of External Affairs has also summoned the Charge d'Affaires of the United States after the US Central Command actually claimed responsibility for this. And India's Ministry of External Affairs has also stressed on this topic a lot of times that any attack or any such situation that occurs on international waters is wrong, and they are keeping an eye on it. As of currently, there are still 3 people missing, which are Indian, and the Indian embassy is in touch with the authorities to assess the entire situation.
India-based defense analyst Rohit Dev says such attacks based on suspicions are strictly banned by international law.
This is looking like more of a very unilateral, hegemonic kind of an action in international waters. That ship, whether it was waving the flag of Palau, whether it was listed in Panama City, whether it carried the Indian crew, there are 2 certainties. A, it was in international waters. B, it was headed to the Gulf of Oman or some other place that direction without any load. So in terms of the United Nations Convention for Law of Seas, you could intercept a vehicle in the high seas, and it could be for any kind of activity like an unauthorized broadcast or slave trafficking or piracy. And if you have those inhibitions or those suspicions, then there are laws as per the San Remo manual where you can onboard ships to check. But this kind of standoff strike and then trying to talk about it being a very, very surgical strike on an engine room of a commercial vehicle of some country which you think you have banned or not allowed to, sail through the high seas, is very, very unilateral on part of the United States. This looks like a very, very, sort of a hegemonic kind of a design. How can you just hit a ship like that based on suspicion? And I think the International Committee of Nations must condemn this, because if this continues unabated, then it's no point saying, our apologies and we didn't strike it well, we didn't have the correct intelligence, we went to Iran on a feeling, we struck some ship on a feeling. I mean, this entire debacle of feelings of Trump administration has to be reined in. And I think India has voiced it today to the United States Charge d'Affaires. And I think this matter should be taken up by the UN as well, because there is no sanction against any shipping in international waters. For US to be targeting it as a designated, a point which can be hit at their whims and fancies.
Following the latest shootout between the US and Iran, Donald Trump has threatened even more attacks on the Islamic Republic over its downing of an American military helicopter.
We're going to be attacking them very hard.
Resuming bombing?
Yeah, well, we are. Based on the helicopter, I guess we have the right to do that. They shot down a very incredible, actually an incredible machine. And at first they said they didn't do it, then they admitted they did. It's sort of easy because we have the bomb. We actually have the bomb. Got very lucky that bomb didn't explode. That bomb was lodged in the helicopter. It didn't explode. It was on fire, but it didn't explode. Those two guys, they knew how to fly, but they got very lucky. And then we had the unmanned boat going very, very fast at speeds that you wouldn't want to go. That's why it's unmanned, I guess, because nobody can go in that. But they rescued. So both people are, fortunately, the pilots are okay.
On Wednesday night, Iran and the US exchanged fire in the biggest escalation seen since the sides reached a ceasefire in April. American strikes targeted water supplies in one of Iran's coastal regions. Local authorities say 2 strategic reservoirs have been completely cut off, leaving many people without access to the most vital resource. In retaliation, Tehran says it hit 21 targets at American air and naval bases in the region, shooting down an MQ-9 drone over Iranian territory. The country's forces also reportedly destroyed F-35 jet hangars at a US command and control center in Jordan. Iranian-American academic Saeed Mohammad Marandi told the program that by striking Iran's water facilities, the United States is only making the situation worse for its own forces in the region and Gulf allies.
The Trump regime attacked these water supplies in order to create terror among people living across the southern part of Iran. But the foolishness of this attack is in that it basically is a double-edged sword. The Iranians ultimately, if this continues, will no longer show restraint and they will retaliate. And if Iran targets the water supplies on the other side of the Persian Gulf, these countries which host US bases and facilitate the attacks on Iran, then everyone in Kuwait, in Qatar, in the Emirates, and Saudi Arabia and Bahrain will have to leave. They'll have to get in their cars and go to Iraq or Oman because they will not be able to live in the heat of summer with the high humidity of the Arabian Peninsula. This is just how the United States behaves. It's like what we see in Gaza. Trump has established a fake ceasefire in Gaza for a very long time now, but ever since then, over 1,000 Palestinians, including hundreds of children, have been massacred in Gaza. And by striking